once you do this climb, you should do this climb a lot of times. It's a little vulgar, but make your projects your bitch. Like once you do them, like, and this is a personal pro tip. This is a step towards mastery versus just like getting hard climbs done, because this entails repeating climbs that you already are able to do. But I don't think this is something that a lot of people do. But for me, it's helped a ton. But once you've figured something out and you get it done the one time and you're like, oh, yes, do it again, right? Do it tomorrow, do it a week from now. Like really make sure you know that you're doing it the right way. Therefore, you can take those properties to a bunch of other climbs that have the exact same, types of factors at play. Make that climb your bitch.
All right, Tim, my dude, how's it going?
Good morning. It's going phenomenal.
I was literally going to make fun of you if you said phenomenal, because that's what you said last time.
I was going to say fantastic, and I was like, let's say phenomenal.
Okay, phenomenal. Well, that's a hell of a statement. Well, thanks for joining me before you're taking your little trip to Joshua Tree, my namesake climbing area that I've never been to. But enjoy. I hope you stay safe. I know there's a lot of high balls out there, so don't get too excited.
Yeah, we're gonna climb. So yeah, Michaela and I are going for a little Valentine's Day trip, which is awesome. Gonna stay at an Airbnb and just enjoy, maybe unplug a little bit. But we're definitely gonna climb maybe 1 or 2 days. But yeah, I've never been, she's never been, and I'm always just excited to check out new areas. And I guess when I was younger, I definitely was very objective focused when I would go to areas, but now I'm just like really excited to, touch some new rock and, find some new sequences and stuff. So, and obviously with my injury, like I'm just limited. So yeah, I'm pretty
I
excited
mean,
just to
can you
enjoy.
even name 5 climbs in Joshua Tree?
No, I can name two.
Which ones? I'm
I
curious
know,
which ones.
I know Iron Resolution.
Yeah.
Is that the hardest one there? Do you know by grade?
There might have been something new. Let's just say it is. We'll just make
Yeah,
that statement. Yeah, it's the hardest one there. Go for it.
yeah. And then I know the White Rastafarian, Highball V3, V2.
Three, yeah, that people, yeah, and
Just
there's
can't.
like Plant Caravan. Yeah, dude, I've my buddies who have been there all have stories of almost dying. But Iron Resolution, do you know the history? God, I should look this up
Mm-mm.
before I'm just talking about this. But I'm pretty sure it was a climb, and then it fell over, and then it became a steeper
Whoa.
climb. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't want to. I already got plenty of corrections to make on today's pod because I said some things that were incorrect. But we try to do that, right, Tim? I mean, like if we find out that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
said something wrong, it's tough to. It's not like we can research everything before we talk about, because we don't always know what we're going to talk about. Like I did not think we were
yeah.
going to talk about Iron Resolution, but cool line, man. You should at least scope that out because it just looks super pretty.
Dude, it looks so cool. I definitely have always wanted to try it, but I'm almost 100% not going to try it on this trip. Um, I went to the gym the other day, and this could be because I had like two really hardcore sessions at the normie gym, uh, and I was doing some pretty crazy stuff. I was just like hate working out. You know how that happens. And then I went to Refuge afterward, and I couldn't climb anything. Like I was like, dude, I am letting go of every possible hold. It was weird because it should have been the most discouraging session that I've had, but it was oddly the most inspiring session. Maybe that's a good little like side pro tip there. Like maybe the hard sessions are the most inspiring if you let them be, because sometimes I'm like just beneath, where I'm like, quote unquote supposed to be, and that's almost like way more discouraging than motivating. I was so far behind. I was like, dude, like, do I really like? Do I want to get back to there? It's like, yeah, I do. Like that'd be fun. Um, and so yeah, felt pathetic at the gym last time, so I'm not gonna try Iron Resolution.
Well, get the hell out of that normie gym. I can just imagine you on the Thigh Master just really working those adductors, just going for it. Um, yeah, I don't know if I'm like you, man. When I have really bad sessions, they're demotivating for me. I like those ones where randomly all of a sudden I'm really on one and I've been kind of like, back on this upswing, and you're like, oh yeah. Oh, I remember what it's like to be really strong. Because I don't know about you, Tim, but just I guess because I have decent technique, decent background, I have decent levels of strength kind of always, you do something for long enough, you got something. But then when you have that extra little snap where you're on some like micro holds, right? And like maybe you're really focusing on keeping your feet on because that's what, lets me get through some harder sections, especially when I'm not in the best shape. And then instead, like my feet pick and I'm swinging around, but then like I feel strong. Like it's like, oh, wait, I can just like campus this. And you go like, oh yeah, that's what it used to be like. So I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I like that you get motivated by sucking, but me, I like that little glimmer of like, oh yeah, that's what I'm capable of.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like those sessions too. I think I like those sessions too, but I can't have them. Like I've taken so much time off of like hard climbing or consistent, trying to do that because that takes for me. If I take time off, like I've done a good job in my career to take like frequent time offs in times, and I usually get back, and then it takes like a couple of sessions to get to that session. And it's like, man, I feel like I need some conditioning and some just like brutal, just brutal work on my body because it's weird because I have good climbing technique still, and my fingers are still pretty strong, and like most of my body's pretty strong, but like I have no leg stability. My endurance is total poop. And so climbing is weird. It's like some parts are really, really good, and some parts are super, super behind. And so I'm like, gosh, I just gotta like get everything a little bit more balanced before I even feel like I'm climbing normally. And then I think I can get those upswing sessions. But um, starting next week, I think I'm gonna start climbing a bit more outside too. So we'll see. I'm psyched.
Well, the good news is you are 24, so you are technically on steroids. That is, it's a fact. It is what it's like to be 24. And actually, I gotta say, anyone listening who is 16 to, I don't know, probably about 30, like maybe not 30, you're basically on steroids. And what I mean by that is just your hormones are peak. You're able to recover faster, build muscle faster. And so I got good news for you, Tim. As soon as you have the time and the ability to, stress your knee like you want to stress it, you're gonna be jacked again. You're gonna be swinging on those crimps. You're gonna be laughing at me on my projects, and yeah, I'm psyched to see it.
Yeah. Speaking of the knee, can I share some news on it?
Yeah, knee it up.
Yeah. So yesterday I got to see a PT friend. He's a removed. He's my brother's best friend's friend. He's also my brother's friend, but he just happened to be in town yesterday, and he was like, "Hey, come see me for free." And I was like, "Great." And he kind of immediately was able
Hold
to.
on. This is what it's like to be a pro climber, you guys. Oh, dude, I got really injured. It's been a few months. And then I know this guy who knows a guy who's training to be a thing. And he said he'd see me for free. So I'm going. It's like, that's just commiserate professional. Good job, Tim. Okay.
Yep, with
Sorry.
no health insurance and
Yeah.
no money, so so we kind of have to. And to be clear, he did say go see somebody in person. He's like, if you have, if you can, go find some health. His biggest thing was like, go get some health insurance and see a real PT in person to get hands on you to show you these things because he's like, I can tell you these things, but I can yell at you through a computer screen, but having someone hands on and like showing you how to do these things and what you're supposed to feel is really really key, and I definitely believe him after what he's shown me because I'm like, I don't know, it's going to be really tough to do a lot of these things, but I'm super happy to share a lot of what I learned. But yeah, go ahead,
Well,
Josh.
just well, I was just laughing because it's like now we're just saying the same stuff but over a podcast, and so people are like, I'm not even gonna go and see a friend of a friend. This is all I got. I got Tim telling me about his friend of a friend. I just before you go into it, just can you remind us what your injury was and kind of like how long it's been, and just like set the stage a little bit for anyone who
Yeah.
maybe not only didn't see what happened to your knee, but maybe just blanked out of their thoughts because they hate seeing injuries, which is
Yeah,
someone like me,
maybe that's a good point. Maybe I'll like repost something on my Instagram and then kind of share the journey because I think a lot of people. I mean, I had received like 10 messages from 10 different people who had told me like, "Oh my god, I did the same thing." Before I was like, "Really? Like this is for me. This is a devastating injury. It sucks." Um, and so yeah, sorry if you guys have run into the same thing, but basically I was in Korea. I was trying some comp boulders, forerunning for something. Details don't matter that much, but I was trying a move over and over again. It wasn't very warm. I'd walked a bunch, and I don't walk very much in my regular life, so I think that was a factor. My legs were really tired, and I'll tell you guys other factors that probably led to this injury. But basically, I was trying this mantle move where I was heel hooking very outwardly with my left leg, and I was just rocking onto it. And probably like sixth or seventh try, I heard two cracks, and on the second crack, it just kept going. And yeah, it felt like you kind of crack your knuckle, and then you crack it again, and you keep going, and it just hurts. It was super sharp pain, like right in well, the LCL, the ligament. Um, and it hurt right away. I grabbed it. That was weird. It hurt so bad, but I didn't think it was hurt right away, and so I grabbed it, and I was like, "Oh, that was weird." And everyone heard the pop, like everyone heard two pops, and everyone was like, "Oh!" And they're all like professional, route setters, like world class level route setters, and they're just watching, and they don't even. Some of them didn't speak English, and they were just like, "Oh, like don't climb again." And then I pulled straight back on, and then I pulled the position, and I couldn't even wait it. I couldn't even like step onto the position, and I was like, "Wow, okay, I hurt my knee. This is bad." And I was in Korea,
I
and
just
so
got to point out, injury is bad when other people can hear
yeah,
your injury. Like that's like the hallmark of an injury when because sometimes you get injured and no one can tell. Like you're like, oh man, that didn't feel so good. But
yeah,
when other people can hear your injury, and yeah, and just to point out, it was that rocking onto a heel hook, not like a heel hook like to keep you, like an overhang where it's keeping you, close
yeah.
to the wall. It's like
Yeah, it's
that
vert.
rock on heel. Yeah, like vert, like really rocking
Yeah.
on. Like, anyways,
But also
so
more context, like my knee was it was facing away from the wall. It wasn't facing like parallel to the wall,
mm-hmm.
like up and down. It was facing out, which is
Yeah, like
exactly what hurts the
perpendicular.
knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no leverage coming from the muscles. The leverage goes all onto the joint, and then the only
Okay.
structure that's going to support that
No
is
more,
the
no
ligament.
more gruesome details. Okay, you hurt your ear. You hurt what the outer bit of your knee. You heard it pop. You
Yeah.
couldn't wait it again. You finally stopped, and now you've been slowly recovering. But it hasn't, dude. I know it sounds terrible to say this, but it really hasn't been that long. Like it's been a couple of
Yeah, it's
months.
been
Like
2 months. Yeah,
yeah,
it's been 2 months, and yeah. Nick told me he was the PT guy. He told me right away. He was like, "Yeah, so you're probably gonna take like another 4 months of rest or so." And I was like, "Wow, like four
no,
months of
you've
rest."
been
Yeah, he
like
was like, "That's
climbing pretty
conservative,"
hard.
but
Yeah, you've been already
yeah, I've been
climbing.
climbing on it. Yeah. So for more context, like right away, I was walking on it quite a bit, but it hurt a lot. It hurt for like a week, I would say. Like for a week, it was painful walking and hiking. I was hiking a lot because I kind of had to because I had kids that I coached come over to Vegas the day after I got back from Korea, and I was hiking with them every single day, which was brutal. And then I rested for a long time, and then I was hiking again for a long time. But then that second wave of hiking was like not painful at all, and I didn't even use a knee brace. And then I started climbing a bit, but for basically that whole month, I climbed maybe once, like actually just pulled onto a boulder one time. And then, yeah, the last month I've climbed like periodically. I built a little vert wall in my backyard just so I can like get my fingers moving because that was something that I didn't want to lose. But it doesn't activate anything because everything overhung, like anything overhung where my leg is extended. That's the only motion I can't do. But that's like, you go to the gym, that's a lot of the terrain in most gyms. So anything twisty, anything far away from me, that's what's really hard. And so it's still really hard, even now. But I had one
So
session like a couple days ago that was better.
yeah, so now you're a couple months in. What did he say to, keep getting better at this stage? And what were his tips for hopefully preventing that injury for you in the future? And maybe that'll help other people either avoid this injury or if they've gotten the injury and recovered. Even if you've recovered from it, you should still kind of recognize that maybe a weak link of yours and you want to do, some exercises to hopefully prevent it
Yeah.
happening again.
So I wanted to share kind of the update now because yeah, not only do I realize that this can help people not get hurt and not hurt their LCLs, and also maybe if they are hurt or have been hurt in the past, help rebuild that. But also, what strengths do you need? Yeah, just to like be stronger at heel hooking, especially in like compromised positions, because I've heard that a lot. People hurt their hamstrings or like feel tension in their hamstrings. So okay, that's a good indication that maybe something's not correct in your physiological system to like provide that structure, and it's almost certainly that. And so right away Nick was able to assess it and say like this is almost certainly a grade 2 LCL tear. And he was showing me why he knew that and just like pulling my knee in directions and seeing like what tension he felt, which was really cool. And he was like, okay, I'm gonna check. He's not a climber, right? He's been climbing like a couple of times, but he doesn't really like get the high level climbing, I'm sure. And but he was right away able to understand like, okay, if you're he's like, let me see the video. I showed him the video. He's like, okay. So he put his leg in the same position. He's like, if you're pulling in this way, you need good hip mobility and you need strong glutes. And I was
Yeah.
like, Oh, okay. So like my hip mobility when I was young was definitely my strongest suit. When I was young, I thought that was absolutely the best thing. And I noticed that as I got older, my hip mobility got a lot worse. And I have not worked on it. 100% I have not worked on it in the last like 5, 6, 7 years. And I just it works for me on the climbing wall, so I don't work on it. He was like he was giving me a bunch of tests. He was like, "All right, show me you standing up." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "Okay, cool, we're gonna fix that." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You don't use your glutes at all when you stand up." And he's like, "You don't use your glutes when you deadlift." He showed me a deadlift. He showed me a squat. He showed me a bunch of stuff. He's like, "You don't use your glutes ever." And he, was pushing onto my glutes. He's like, "Your glutes are really soft. Like you don't use your glutes enough." And I was like, "Okay, interesting." So he showed me a bunch of ways to use my glutes and strengthen them. And he said my hips were extremely tight. So he showed me a bunch of different hip mobility things. And he said, basically, you want to allow your access to get leverage from the right spots, and
Yeah.
and that's exactly what happened with the knee, right? And so he was just showing me all these things to get more access to my hip mobility, more access to using my glute strength, and almost none of the conversation had to do with my knee whatsoever. He's like, basically, don't hurt your knee. If you're going to do a bunch of stuff, like, don't do anything that hurts the knee. You can do front and back things, you can do up and down things, but anything sideways and twisty, that's probably going to hurt the knee. So for now, you don't want to do that, but otherwise
Okay.
strengthen these things.
Well, just to cap it off, I'd love if you share like one or two exercises that he prescribed. I mean, I know like if you're listening to this and you hurt your knee, we are not doctors. We are not even a friend of a friend who is a doctor. We're just sharing some of it. But I just want to point out one thing about heel hooking. And you said people often feel stuff in their hamstring.
Hmm.
And I would like 9 times out of 10, if you feel a heel hook in your hamstring, you're heel hooking wrong. It's just
Hmm.
like heel hooking should be felt, yeah, more in your glute. Like people often think that the way you heel hook is like you pull in, like you try to like pull your heel towards your butt, which would be like a hamstring curl or something. But that's not at all, right? Like you
Yeah.
open your hip, kind of like sit on it and almost like rock your hips up into it. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I always feel in my butt, but I definitely do not feel it in my
I
hamstring.
almost never feel my hamstring.
But
Yeah.
like so I just because we're all about this nuance and stuff, sometimes a heel hook actually is where it's like a weird one. You have to like kind of pull in, but those are
You got to
ones
do a
that,
wrong one.
yeah, you got to
Yeah.
do a wrong one. I hate to say it, but like that is the case. That's why there's no wrong movement in some ways. Like
Hmm.
there's fundamentals that you want to lean towards, but then sometimes shit gets weird, and you just kind of don't have
Hmm.
a choice, and it's just how the rock or whatever is made. So, yeah,
Yeah.
any like tips from him about like a specific exercise or two that you think would probably be broadly applicable, even if you don't have an injury, if you had one before, just like, hey, this might help you.
Yeah. So before that, I worked with Andy as well, Andy Tollefson, who's a coach that I worked with, and he was on the podcast before. And he gave me a lot of things that were very similar sounding to what Nick was giving me, also, which were a lot of hip opening stretches. So, a lot of you guys probably already know like pigeon pose type stuff, but a little bit more specific to things that I could do with my knee, and just some general glute stretches. We had one where basically I was pulling my knee, pushing my knee away and pulling my foot towards me, which is a really common glute stretch as well. But it was specifically to allow more, I think, more access to the knee like positions, because I couldn't move my knee. Like my knee is very, very restricted. Even still, it's very tight, so I can't like move it sideways very much without pain. Um, and so two of the motions that Nick was telling me to do that were cool was I lay on my side and both my knees are together, and basically I pick up my foot and I try not to rotate my hip at all. So I place my hand on my hip and I allow my hip not to move whatsoever, and I lift my foot. And I could lift my foot like 2 or 3 inches. And he was like, "All right, I'm going to pull your foot and show you where you're supposed to get to." And he's like, "Don't worry, most people don't have this ability, but this is what you want to strengthen." And he was like, "All right, you can go to way over here, like easily without without any restriction or like your hip turning. Like you don't have the strength at all to pick that foot up." So he said, "I want you to do that pretty much regularly." And then there was one other pose where basically one leg was bent backwards, and then one leg was both the legs are bent in the same position, but one's in front of me and one's behind me. And then I have a cable from above, and then I turn into it, and basically that allows both the hips to rotate, and
Mm.
so it provides more of the stretch and the mobility, and strengthens that. So both of those things, he said, were going to be probably pretty helpful in the future, and so that's probably something that everybody can do, even if you're not hurt. Just like
Well,
allowing more hip mobility and strengthening.
I mean, what you're
It's
talking about is
huge.
glute med, it's like the classic weakness on people. It's just people sitting down too much, just always walking in a straight line, like, not jumping from side to side. And even if you do, especially as you get older, things kind of turn off, like no little kid's glute med is weak. But uh and I just want to point out, like, these specific exercises may or may not help
Right.
whoever's listening. Like, but I think the reason why I really wanted you to bring this stuff up too is that I've gone through a series of injuries, as everyone has, and just what you find by going through it is that something was weak, like something was missing. And it's just mind blowing how sometimes, like, sometimes it's like the most obvious thing that everyone tells you you need to do, and then and then you don't think you really need it because you don't have pain there, and then you get injured and you go back and you do it, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I was terrible at that. And so one of mine was this overhead external rotation. It's like everyone knows, like, you should have, you should practice external rotation with your shoulder. And it's not like I was bad. Like, when I would do it, it was okay, but I was using like the wrong muscles or whatever. And
Mm.
I started doing them after dislocating my shoulder again. And dude, I put on all sorts of muscle in like these weird places, like just doing light bands. And now I feel really strong and good in that joint. I kind of, tweaked my back a little while ago, and my PT just gave me these like basic big three kind of like side planks and with these random crunches. And all of a sudden I put a bunch of muscle there and my back is feeling really good. And, I know some people might hear that and say, like, oh, you just need to do pull-ups, Josh, or you just need to do squats. And it's like, no, like I, I do that stuff. I'm good at those. But somewhere along the way, we often find these, kind of like chinks in our armor that maybe we acquired them when we were younger through injuries, whatever the case may be. I just, I think people should stick to the fundamentals, go climb and do their thing, but then just be open to the fact that maybe you have just a quote unquote obvious, maybe to like a PT or someone, obvious weaknesses that can be corrected. And just do not discount the benefits of lame exercises. Like, it's surprising. I've learned it again and again. And trust me, I just want to go climbing. Like, or I just want to say, like, I'm just going to do a perfect pull up and it's going to do everything. But I get my ass kicked time and time again, finding out that I have these weaknesses, and maybe I have more of them than other people. But my guess is that, everyone out there has some kind of super low hanging fruit that can be corrected surprisingly
Yeah.
easily.
I really like how you said that. I mean, just being open to it at the end, because yeah, we all should just focus on the climbing aspect, but then just being open to like, okay, maybe I have some very low hanging fruit, very obvious things, and really like kind of my point there is like maybe people, if you're concerned, go see a professional in someone who doesn't really understand, and they're gonna see so many things that are like, oh, this is what you use, like you should be maybe using these things as well. It doesn't cost you that much. And yeah, something I wanted to share was it's really easy to be arrogant when you can not see those issues, right? Like I've heel hooked my entire. I told Nick, I was like, bro, I've done this move so many times in my life, and it's just like the only one time it actually hurts is the time I get concerned, which is like not really. It's not. It shouldn't be that way, right? I should be concerned if it's something that we understand in science that hey, that's going to provide pressure in a point that's not necessarily good for you, right? Doing that motion. Just because I got lucky most of my life not hurting it, it does not necessarily mean that I was doing heel hooking the right way. And so that's something that I learned, and I would just like to understand because I think yeah, like I said, I've heard a lot of people hurt their knees heel hooking. For a lot of people say like I don't really understand why something hurts here. I'm like, yeah, me neither. And so hopefully we can all learn over time. And I'm not saying these are the answers. I think Josh makes a good point there. These are not necessarily the answers. I hope they work for me, and I'll share that obviously as time goes on. As a podcast that lives on, and I'll share. And I told Nick too, because Nick doesn't want to charge me anything, because we're like family friends. And I was like, I'll pay you a tip. I'll pay you a big tip if it works. Like if I'm good and healthy, like at the end of this, dude, I'll for sure pay you a big tip. So
Dude,
hopefully it just works.
I wish all healthcare worked like that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, like I'm kind of injured. They're like, if you get better from this, then I'll charge you. Like, could you imagine if you got some kind of gnarly disease and, you pay like millions of dollars, but then you don't even get better? Like, you hear those stories all the time where they're just shelling out cash and they go bankrupt and like they're still, yeah. Uh, well, yeah, I think that this is one of the things about climbing that's a little tricky is that we can do moves a bunch. Okay, well, let me put it this way. The thing that's great about climbing and really difficult also to train for is that it is just so widely varied. Every move is different. You encounter moves that are just fascinatingly at a crazy angle that you'd never seen before. And this is why the training is so fun because if you run the 100-meter race, you know like it's going to be this kind of steps. Like there's no surprises. So in climbing, where it gets weird is that we do these things that can be at end range of motion that are really, really quote unquote tweaky. And so you may have heel hooked a million times, and this heel hook was probably at really end range of motion, like an area that you probably don't experience that much, that we're in a compromised position. Now that doesn't mean that the move is bad. It just is, right? It's like that's what is expected of us. And you can imagine like a gasto cling requires a lot of shoulder mobility. Those are my personal scary ones. I really don't like those, and due to my shoulder injuries in the past. But so here's the thing is that we know that we're going to encounter those moves. We don't know when we're going to encounter those moves. And and oftentimes that's actually what makes a climb iconic sometimes, right? Like you can think of actually, I think it's Skeleton Key. What's that like V11 in
Mm,
Joe's that has that gasto cling? Do you know what I'm
I
talking
don't know the
about?
move, but yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
whatever. Maybe people listen will know, but there is like a V11 and like it revolves around this really intense gasto cling. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that just climbing kind of prepares you for that stuff, but it may not. Like, and so you need to hopefully expose yourself to that end range of motion in lower quantities before you go really hard. And you kind of have done that, Tim. Like, it's not like you had never heel hooked and then tried the most heinous heel hook ever, but maybe you were cold, maybe you hadn't done it in a while, whatever the factors are. But it's just a reminder too that that's why sometimes hangboarding on like really small edges can be good. It's like, oh, this is what it's like to hang on a 6 mil. Like, so that when you go outside and all of a sudden you're trying to flash something and you come across a 6 mil, that your body's like, oh, I've never seen this before. Uh, but it's tricky because because there's unlimited types of movement, how do you build up to it? And what I would just say is if a move is tweaky, it's because, or if a move feels tweaky, it's because it is, and just tread lightly. And I'm not
yeah.
saying that you blew it or anything. I'm just like, what I'm talking about.
No, definitely. Yeah, you can definitely ride the line on a lot of tweaky moves, and yeah, a lot of moves that, especially in higher level climbing, you're gonna go and be like, all right, that's pretty tweaky, but like if I do it this way and like if I, especially if I prep for it, like I should be fine. And most of the time you are. But yeah, it's crazy how much. Yeah, climbing is such a tough sport. You need to learn a lot for sure. You need to understand what you're doing. You also need to understand what your body can do in terms of technique and performance, and then you need to understand your mind very well and for the performance side, but you also need to be actually physically prepped to make sure you're not hurting yourself, because once you can perform those things, you got to make sure your body is ready to do that stuff. And yeah, what Josh is talking about, those end ranges of motion, when they do come up, you really hope that you've done your homework and you've done that. And I definitely did not. I've done those in the past a lot, but like I haven't even been comp climbing, so like I actually haven't been doing that type of motion very much. I haven't been rock climbing entirely. Like sleepwalker is what I was pulling on for like the previous months, and it's like that's all just like downward stepping. Like there's not that much complexity to the motion of your knees or anything, right? It's hard, but it's not like super complex for your legs. So yeah, all factors, dude. It's super super complex.
Dude, isn't that what's so great about climbing though? It's like you were climbing on a V16 or whatever, and it doesn't prepare you for everything
Yeah,
else. Like every climb is different. And it is why it's really impressive when you see people go to a new area and do well on a bunch of different styles. Like I use this example just because it's kind of a place I know well is Bishop, where sometimes you'd see people come and they'd crush a certain specific kind of climb, like really maybe really thin. But then when you see someone come and do swarm, uh, mandala, and you're like, okay, no, those are crimpy. Oh, direction, yeah, that's crimpy too. And then they're like, oh, they did the buttermilker too. Okay, yeah, that's way different. Okay, oh, they did Spectre also. And you go, wow, okay, you just came and did the all the hard climbs, and they're somewhat different, and sure they're all on buttermilk granite style, but it just shows that their body was prepared for a myriad of challenges. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, I shouldn't say that. I think we both really like that ability, that kind of, that's maybe that mastery thing. And clearly having your body be in shape for it is part of that factor, but just being able to rise to the occasion of whatever that climbing challenge is. And so yeah, I don't know though, Tim, it's so freaking hard to be prepared for it all and do that. I like how you called it homework, be prepared. So
Mhm.
well, we just gave
Yeah.
people some homework with those glute meat exercises.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm sorry. I have to hop on the Bishop love. I love the couple like hard double digit test pieces that you're dropping. Like they're all different styles. I feel like that's something that is not necessarily noticed by everybody. Because not on the, until like recently, I feel like not that many strong climbers would go to Bishop, and I always thought of Bishop as a amazing place to test all sorts of things because you have the access to being like, all right, let's go try to do, direct north direction. Let's go try to do blood meridian. Let's go try to do lucid or something. And then mandala. And then, oh, let's go try to do buttermilk or completely different rock and movement. Oh, let's go try to do specter. And like, if you can do all those climbs, like you really understand a wide variety, and that's pretty rare. I feel like for climbing areas, especially in the kind of high grade range, and especially how close everything is. It's so easy to just be all right. Let's go back up and let's go get our ass kicked by something because not that many people are going to go and do all those things very easily. No matter how good you are at climbing, not that many people are going to go and do
Well,
all of
I
them
don't know.
easily.
Do you see Ethan Salvo's tick list and Sean Bailey, who are just out there? Okay,
Yeah,
let's
not that many people.
yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, just while we're there, I want to do a correction, something. I don't know if this is a correction, but Bryce Viola reached out to me after hearing the last pod, and we talked a lot about Austin Hoyt doing the lucid dreaming move in that kind of double clutch style, where he went from the pinch and the low undercling, and then when he went to that iconic jump move or cut move, I guess, dead point to the slot where he swung out, instead of just stopping there, he pulled through with his left hand into another hold and just kind of did this interesting compy style movement that me and Tim were just like, whoa, way to bring new thinking into it. And so I don't know. I didn't know anything about Austin's background on that climb, but Bryce made it clear to me that he could do it the other way and that he did it something like second try. And now I bet you Austin's now going to reach out and be like, oh no, it was this try. But he did it really quickly and easily, quote unquote, quickly and easily without doing that double clutch style. And so I think, again, what makes that so interesting is that bringing a new style into that move is really cool. And also knowing that he could do it the other way and then being able to juggle these different betas, and it also speaks volumes of how good the climb is when there's multiple ways to do something that feel the same grade. So I just wanted to, thanks Bryce for bringing the correction to it. And Austin, dude, we gotta get this video. I got a bunch of messages from people saying, where's the video? Like we want to see how Austin does that, and maybe he's holding off for the send, but maybe we can get a little sneak peek. And I don't know, it feels weird to post a video of him not sending it but only doing that move, but I don't know, maybe you can get it.
Yeah, we can ask. I think I forgot. I think I asked and I think he sent it, but let's confirm and let's try to get a video of it because it is very cool watching
It's
him do
very
that
cool.
double clutch. So yeah, but yeah, thanks Bryce too. Bryce is a very knowledgeable climber. Maybe we should have him on the pod sometime.
I keep meaning to. He'll come on. Dude, Bryce is just out there back east with the crew, just putting down hard things. I feel like that's another area that's kind of just brewing a bunch of epically strong climbers. And there's like I probably overuse this phrase of like a new era or a golden age, and maybe it's just that's what's going on right now in climbing. And that was kind of what our last pod was almost about. Like shit is going down and it's badass. And we've talked to Ethan like up in Squamish doing something wild and new with like Lucas. Clearly Bishop and actually all the Sierras has seen some massive up and coming climbing. But then the East Coast, like Bryce is taking off hard projects. Austin's from back there, and he's a strong young man. And so yeah, we should highlight that at some point. So too many good climbers to talk to. It's a great problem to have. But thanks for letting us know how wrong we were, Bryce. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and maybe by the way, but we're only talking about people and places in the U.S. We gotta sprout out internationally and get some other international climbers too at some point. I know probably a
I
lot of you guys
know.
want that.
I know. It's dude. Yeah, yeah. We do too. We only speak English though. I don't know about you, Tim. I only speak English, but someday we'll get more. What I'm hoping to do is we'll travel and then we'll be somewhere and then we'll get to talk to that local crew. And so, yeah, little test piece field trip. How does that sound, Tim?
Oh yeah, always down.
Okay, well, my other correction, speaking of other strong places and strong crews, is I somehow this is shout out to Andy Lamb for calling me out on episode 80. Somehow I said Drew Ruana did Megatron, and I'm hey maybe he has sent it now since I last said that, but not that I know of. It's Sean Rabitou who did Megatron. And I knew that, but I misspoke. I'm
I knew that
sorry.
too. I just didn't remember to correct you because I watched the video and I was like, I remember now that you said it, I was like, oh, I totally watched that video a
Yeah,
while
it's because
ago.
I watched that video. I'm psyched
Yeah,
for Drew to do it. He'll do it. He will do it at some point. That's what I meant. So I was just seeing into the future.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I'm just I'm gonna bust out my pro tip here, Tim, because I don't know, I really like it, and I wasn't sure where I was gonna squeeze it in, so I'm just putting it out right now after the corrections. And it came out when I was watching this little girl climb who's like 6 years old, and she's just good. Like I haven't talked to her parents. I know her parents, and I've just was watching her like climb in the kitchen. And we all went to the climbing gym, and I'm trying to tell her parents like, no, no, she's special, she's different. And what it is that she just is dynamic and commits to moves. And it's it's the reason why I bring it up. I mean, I guess that's my pro tip is this commitment, is this doing a move like you're going to complete it. Like, so what I mean is you have this little girl and moves are really big for her. But when she goes for the move, she swings, she has, if she missed that hold, she would pitch. She would bail. But she doesn't move like that. She's confident in the fact that she's going to stick it. It just made me think of all sports. And I've been skiing a bunch because the snow's been good. And the key in skiing, well, I'm not a very good skier, so take this with a grain of salt, but you have to lean forward. Like you don't. What happens when you start leaning backwards is you get bucked off your skis. You have to commit to that hill. So when you go down a steep hill, you don't like just hope for the best. You have to charge it. You have to lean forward and be aggressive. And the less aggressive you are, the more out of control you get. And it's like this really bad spiral, but just makes me think of climbing. And that's this like ineffable thing you see in these kids where they just have this belief in every move that they do. And, there's a time and a place for static climbing, but and even in static climbing, it's still like this. It's just this confidence. You see it even in on-site climbing, your sport climbing. You know there's a draw up there, like go for it, and don't like kind of feel your way and hope for the best. Like move confidently, go into that territory with certainty, and it just yeah. So that's my lesson from that 6-year-old girl. There you go, pro tip:
Nice. I love
6-year-old
it.
girl.
We've talked about similar types of tendencies in the past, but kind of on the opposite end. That is one of, I think, early on in my climbing, I would have said that would have been one of the best pro tips I could hear. It's something that I learned a lot from watching other really good climbers on the team. Just actually just understanding, like watching people like Chris Sharma, watching other kids, and just being like, what is different? Like, why is it so hard for me to like learn this? And it's like, oh, they just kind of go for it, regardless if things go right or wrong. They still just kind of go for it, and then they practice that skill. And then going through that, it is like skiing where, or like snowboarding, where if you don't lean forward enough, you don't go aggressively enough, then things are going to be totally out of control. And climbing is the exact same way. It doesn't mean that everything is going to work out for you for sure, but you're going to go probably more appropriately, and you're going to have to learn that and hone it and get better at it. But if you have this survival mentality of I don't want to fall, you have to notice the tendencies that arise. And so when I analyze climbers at any level, I'm looking at their survival tendencies, their habits, their mindsets, and then what physical habits do that form, right? And so some people don't understand what their feet are doing or what their hips are doing or where their trajectory is going simply because of their survival mentality. So, a secondary pro tip to that, other than just focusing on this commitment end, but also understanding your survival brain, because it's not wrong necessarily. There is an element to every good climber that understands, okay, this is going to cause failure, but to react to it is a totally different. We don't want to go down that path either. And so, yeah, practicing, I would say practicing both of those mindsets is really, really important. And yeah, just
Yeah.
trying not to lean towards a survival mindset.
Yeah. Any tips for people who I'm sure you have encountered clients who just won't go for moves. I mean, God, I can't stand. I hate seeing this. I've seen it so many times. You see people like wind up for a move, and then they right as even they wind up well, and you see them generating this momentum, and then they stop, and you just think, you go for it. You hear people yell, "Go for it!" Like, what do you do when you encounter a client that really struggles to commit to moves?
Yeah, I guess sometimes depending on the language, there's always been different scenarios, and always I speak to them differently to get them to go for it. But that's because they're already doing the first step. And so when I teach myself how to commit for moves, I usually have a go that kind of lines it up for me, and then I kind of half-ass the go, right? I think that a lot of good climbers do that, and then
Mm.
they kind of understand what you're supposed to do. So you have to know what you're supposed to do. If you just go for something and you're not actually doing things, and I'm talking about in the terms of the technique, the timing, the positioning, if you don't actually know that this is going to lead likely to a successful movement, how would you commit for it, right? You're just going to blindly commit to something that might work. No, that's not true. You need to understand that something probably will work, and then you can say, okay, this try though, now I'm not going to think about if it's going to work or not. So you almost have to have two different steps where in the beginning, now when you're a good climber, you can just combine those two steps usually on your first try, but even then you're like a little bit unsure and you're like kind of hoping, right? Which is fine because that's how you on-site things, right? But if you're able to work something, go up, try to learn it, be like, okay, I think, okay, this is going to be difficult because that I need more height here, like I need more of this turn, like, okay, and then you might try it, and then you might have to go back to that first step, right? You might then go, okay, I know how to do this. I'm going to set my foot up here. I'm going to go for this. I'm going to do this move. Go for it, and you're like, okay, that was wrong, right? And the second try, you're going to go for it, and you're like, that was wrong. You go back to the first step, being like, okay, I know, reline these things up. But I would say that first step of understanding your movement, learning what you're supposed to do, and then shutting the mind off. Don't think about it anymore. Then just go for it. And for me, like I said, the best thing, well, when I was younger, the easiest way I would commit for something was to SOT, was just actually to provide some sort of like, okay, like go for it, and just like, and it's obnoxious and stuff. But like, obviously, when you're a kid, it's easier because you don't care when people look at you that way. Nowadays, I'm like totally embarrassed to do something like that. But breath work, I turn that into breath work because that's way more socially acceptable, but also it's way more effective. I think you can prime those things and cue specific muscle groups, specific technical things as you do it over time. But I take an exhale and an inhale. I get upset in the position. I've taken my try to learn it. I release, and then I take an inhale right as I go. And then I go into the move, and I don't think anymore. I'm just thinking about the breath work, and then hopefully things line up. I go back to that first step, readjust, and then I go for it, right? So I think having those two different steps where you understand what you're doing and then you go for it will help a lot for practicing those kind of commitment type things.
That was great, Tim. Seriously, thank you. I also just want to, yeah, big thumbs up. I also just want to tell people, anyone who's struggling with it, that it is one of the best feelings in the world to push past that barrier that you're self-imposing and really commit to a move, whether it's because you're maybe a little over a draw, or just for whatever reason you're holding yourself back, because it doesn't have to be fear, but whatever the case is, it feels so good to say, no, I'm fucking going for it. And then you go for it and you do it, and it's just this surge of opening. It's a surge of adrenaline, but just all of a sudden your world looks different. You think, oh, like, why was I holding myself back there? Like, what was I doing? And now what am I capable of? And I think that, if you can kind of get that ball rolling and then be that kind of person that just goes for it, it's a great feeling. I mean, it's great in skiing. It's great in everything. I think it's why, the microcosm of high balls is there too, where you venture into the unknown and you do it with confidence. And that just pervades every realm of climbing. And so I like your tip there of, like, the one of the things that you really can control and start that lead domino is that breath. And we know, I mean, all sports know, like, that is a key component. There's a reason why sodding is done in our sport, in karate and in martial arts. It's because it it is a good way to kind of line the body up and give you, even if it's not the most important physically, just if that's the cue that you are have control over and start the ball rolling, use it.
Yeah, totally. I have a secondary tip, just based on what you were saying about getting the ball rolling. Something that I used to do a lot, something I don't do anymore at all, but I used to do this at least five different climbs in every single warm up that I did as a kid. I would go do a couple easy climbs like V0 to V2 and just take off holds. And just, but before I would go, I'd be like, I'm going from that hold to that hold to that hold. And that allowed me, almost certainly you would be able to do it. It just sometimes is like committing, and you just do it. You just get used to it. And doing things at a high success rate and then doing things at a medium success rate and then doing things at a low success rate is really important when you're practicing mental things, right? Because these are mental things. You're talking about commitment, and trying to commit on your project is not the place where you practice that, right? That's where you hope it lines up, right? But you need to practice it. Just like we were talking about everything before, like you need to do your homework. This is your homework, right? The mental side of commitment is homework. You have to do that on easier things, and that's kind of what I was saying is like all that line up and then go for it. That's probably better done on that medium end. But you could definitely do it on the easy end to just get the mind primed, because that stuff builds so well. You know, like when you're what you're saying, like when you start building and get the ball rolling and you're on fire, your brain starts to open up to like, wow, I did not realize that that was stuff that was possible. And so start easy, start on the easier stuff helps a lot.
Okay, Coach Tim, I'm going to take you to my project where I am committing and just kind of see. This is just totally random, but while I got you, I'm gonna use
Let's
you.
try this.
Okay, I've been on this. I've been on the moon board. Big surprise, 2016 set. Actually, by the way, correction. I have about 75 benchmarks left, not 30 or 40, like I said last time. And I'm starting to get back
That's
into
still
shape,
pretty
so
good.
I'm ticking them off. But there is a V quote unquote V8 7B plus climb that I have tried it like I've probably tried it like 3 sessions or 4 sessions. I guess that's not the craziest project ever, but I've tried it a lot, man. And it's this last move. It's called 2017. It's a Ben Moon benchmark.
Oh, I think I know
And
that.
dude, I've talked about like I've tried it for like months. Or it's been on and off, through my injuries. I talked about it in a classroom we did. And so it culminates in this move, like a big jump move. You have your left hand on a hold, your right hand is on this kind of like you kind of flip something and make a weird side pull, and you have a high right foot, and you have to just dunk the finish hold. So basically, what you do is you are kind of sagged out left, and you have to get over your foot on the right, and then jump. And the crux for me, it better freaking be the crux for everyone else too, is grabbing that finish hold. And so I'm doing all these things where I've had to like dial in all these layers of beta. I need to push off of a smear to get over the right foot. I have to really jump
Yeah,
on that right foot. My right hand is on this weird, like slopey, it's not, it's supposed to be a Gaston, but I kind of turn it into a side pull. And
I
sometimes
see.
my right hand blows for it. And then that left hand is good, but it's not like a jug or anything. And I guess what I'm okay, so I'm committing, Tim. Like I'm not
Mhm.
half-assing it. I'm laying down on my back sometimes. I'm doing it. But what I find tricky is that I have like 3 different things I need to do. I really need to jump off of that foot, but I really need to get over by using my right hand. But sometimes my right hand blows, and I need to push over with my left foot because it gets me over to the right side. But sometimes that foot skitters because I'm just smeared. And so I sometimes I kind of generate a beginning swing to then push over. But what I'm asking you is when you are trying to commit to something like this, and I have all of these different factors, and I've done the move maybe like once or twice just in isolation, but I don't know like which thing to focus on because sometimes my hand blows, sometimes my foot blows, sometimes I get over my foot, but I didn't pull in enough with that right side to keep me in close to the wall. So when I launch, I'm kind of ejector seating out and not getting the height because of that. And so like when you get these like complex amount of variables, like
Mhm.
do you like choose one? Like how do you break down something where there's like 3 different things you have to focus on and they're all difficult to, and
Mm.
combining them is really the crux.
Oh, it was a great painted picture there for a scenario, and is a very common. This is probably the most. This is like what happens in sessions, right? People, I sometimes I'll get frustrating sessions where I'll have a client just like never fall, but it's not very effective, right? I can just assess you on the climbing that you have been doing, but climbing is best done when you're falling, and so understanding like why did you not do this, and what could you adjust. And so I pulled up this climb, and I sorry, Josh, I happened to flash this climb.
Oh, you hold up to the camera. Let's get it. When we have this on YouTube. Okay, hold it, dude. You flash this climb. Good job, man.
yeah,
Wait. Let me. Yeah, that's the climb, dude.
yeah, I remember it. I do remember it.
You,
So yeah, I
damn
know
it, Tim.
exactly what you're talking
You
about too.
jerk.
Yeah, but
You're
also
a dick.
dude, this movement, this type of thing where it's like very explosive on like a really weird balance, and the hands aren't really obvious where you're supposed to go. But then as long as the landing point is good, I very much practice this. It's very kilterboard like as well. Um, but basically, you need to understand what is the most important factor that gets you the movement, and that's the only one you can focus on. I generally try not to focus on specific things much if I am aware that I'm confused, because confusion leads to a less effort, and effort is really the thing that's
Hmm.
going to get you to move, right? So almost certainly, if I watched video of you specifically trying this specific climb, I
Oh,
would
I'll send you
question
the
if
video,
one.
dog.
Yeah, send me the video. I'm super curious. I would question if I'm seeing 100% effort, and it might feel like you're putting effort, but where is the effort going, right? And so I would question if there was effort. I'm not saying you're not trying 100% hard, but I would question if there was the correct amount of effort in the correct place. And so for me, my understanding is time over the right foot is going to be absolutely the 100% key factor that gets you the movement done, as long as you drive enough, right? But you know how to drive enough, so I wouldn't even call that a factor. Once I have that factor, all I would focus on from try to try is could I try harder? And so the brain doesn't work so well when you're directing at things, right? When you're saying, okay, do that, okay, do this, okay, do this, right? The brain is very confused. There's no point in doing that in rock climbing. You want to do that off the wall, right? And so as long as you are just able to explain it, through a podcast on a mic, and so you can talk about it, great. So you already know what you're doing. There's no point in thinking about it on the wall. As long as you think about it on the ground,
Hmm.
you should trust that your body's going to already know that when you get onto the wall. Now it's not going to happen right away, right? But that's the beauty of trying things over time. And then you do that 100 times, maybe then you can flash this climb, the new version of this, scenario, because this scenario is going to pop up, in a wide variety of positions, and you're always going to be a little bit confused, but then you'll be more certain of how to flash. And that's how I think comp climbing works, by the way. That's how competitors train.
Yeah.
They understand specific types of movements, types of systems on how to generate, and they're like, well, this is likely like the last one, right? And I just have to focus on committing and focus on the effort. It's very similar to the pro tip that you just gave, where it's like the girls just focus on one aspect, which is getting the move done, right? And you're probably not thinking about that. You're thinking about why it's not getting done, right? And so you great, think about that, but then when you pull on, just think about how to get the move done.
Okay, I like it. Can we just pull off another layer on this, because it's I know what you're saying, and I like what you're saying. It's about that right foot. And so honestly, when I saw this climb, I thought it was going to be really easy, because I was like, oh, like I know what to do. Like you're going to launch off this right foot, and I just know it's going to be awkward, but then you focus on getting on that right foot and you jump. It's so here's the issue I was having is I'll go and I I couldn't get enough weight on the right foot. And then it's like, oh, okay, I need to really focus on pulling over there with my right hand. It's like I'm going to get weight over on my right hand. And then one time it's like I go for it and then my foot pops because I'm like focusing on my right hand to pull over. I go, oh, Josh, you idiot. Like you're not focusing on the foot. It's all about the foot. So then I focus on the foot and my right hand will pop like it's like I pulled too hard on it to try to get over to the foot. And it's just like it's tricky for me because then I might go and put my thought onto my smear foot to generate over, because I'm like, oh, okay, I need to put more effort onto that. And I know that when I put them all together, like it's crazy, dude. I struggle with all those three factors I was just talking about. I put it all together, and not only did I do the move, it was piss. It's like I'm
Mm-hmm,
dunking. I
mm-hmm.
mean, I'm just like I'm way over the hold, and so I know that I have it in me. I know that it's there, and so I it's just interesting. like I'm not disagreeing at all with you. I'm just saying like it's interesting to me that you're saying like, are you doing too much? Are you, if you're not confident on how to coordinate that, maybe you just need to go back to that basic, focus on the thing you know is the key, which is launching off that right foot, and then kind of letting all those other pieces fall into place, organically.
Yeah, it's a fun layer too because yeah, I'm sure over a couple of tries you're gonna be like, oh, I got it, like I can do the move, and then you'll pull on from the start. And generally, it's like when
Exactly.
you pull on from the start and you get to the last move and you're like, okay, like here it is. Don't ever do that, by the way, guys. In climbing, don't ever do that. Like I always struggled with this, and my coach used to tell me this early on. He's like, Adriel used to tell me on like lead routes, I would get to some spot, and it was especially when I was sequencing, and I was like, that's the crux, like this would be the hard spot. And he was like, did you know you always fall on your second shot? And I was like, oh, it's so interesting. I like go, and then I fall. I'm like, he's like, why do you even start to shot? Like, is that a section where you like believe? And I'm like, yeah, totally. Like, I tell myself, like, this is it. And he's like, don't do that. Like, just stay consistent in your mindset. Just like stick moves, stick moves, stick moves, right? And so even there, like, don't don't ever remind yourself. Try to get away from this, like, this is it, because that, unless you practice it, I guess, but be careful of what that language will be internally once you say this is the move. What do you start focusing on, right? If you start focusing on, okay, push on the left foot, drive over the foot, commit, follow through, that's what I would like to hear. If you say, if that's really what you've primed your brain to think, like, okay, I'm going to get there, okay, push on that, pull on this, and go, right? Then that's great. But if you're saying adjust this and do this, well, the timing's not going to be right, right? The timing comes in a tier, and the way that I see it is create momentum. And so if you're not downswinging enough, you're not going to get enough momentum over your body. So that would be the first thing I would check as a coach is, are you creating enough momentum? And then, yeah, are you pulling too much on the hands? Because I would argue that the hands don't do that much. And so, for example, actually, a little micro
Mm.
beta for you, if you want to try it, I full crimp that right hand and my pinky's on the right side of the hold. I keep it in a Gaston position. It helps me provide just a little bit of that motion, but I don't even need it because I'm swinging enough to the left. And so, right there, I'm like this, and I hear, and also don't look up like on this move. I remember like I needed to look down, and then as I let go of my right hand, that's when I looked up. And that's because if you look up, that's what's going to take your right hand off. Right? If you turn, it's like skateboarding. Skateboarding, I used to have this problem all the time. Is if I was trying to do an ollie, I would just I would be facing forward. I remember some like chill skateboard guy was like, "Bro, keep your shoulders straight." And I was like, "What?" And every time I would ollie, I would turn my board to the right, and he was like, "Your shoulders." He just came back around. He's like, "Your shoulders are turned to the right. That's where your board's gonna go." And I was like, oh my god, I was rock climbing at the time. I was like, oh my god, that's like rock climbing. And so where your shoulders are pointing is probably where your body's going to go, and you don't want your body to go right too early here, right? That's the key there. It's too early, you're gonna take leverage off your right hand. So I would say look down and then just focus on getting that momentum, and then just provide anchors, right? So you were able to analyze a point where, okay, well, I need these anchors strong. Yeah, but you don't need them turned. You just need them strong, right? It doesn't matter. Like that's where I think full crimping is like really key. There is like, okay, it doesn't even matter how much feel you have for the hands. Just grab them as hard as you can, and then just focus on the leverage points here. And the leverage point would be your left foot pushing, getting over your right foot over for enough amount of time with enough momentum, and you're gonna stick the move almost 100% of the time, especially given how strong you are. Which
Oh,
is
that's
why I
really
could
good.
flash this climb, I think.
Yeah, that's really good. You know what it made me think? I like the idea of just staying in the flow. It's funny because in some ways, if you do have a tricky section coming up, you do want to remind yourself kind of what the order of operations are. It's like, hey, remember, this is tricky. Like, remember to get your foot on, or remember to get your weight over here. But if you first of all, if you build up failure in your mind, you're like, this is going to be so hard. Like that really is
Totally.
whack. And I do this, I've done it on this climb. I get into those two handholds for the crux move. And of course, I'm feeling like good and strong. And then I go, okay, like right here. And what I find I do is I really dig into those hands. And I've had my foot pop a few times because what I'm doing is I'm like yarding up on the hands. I'm like, okay, like I'm going to pull really hard now. And then that takes all the way off my feet. And that's like
Hmm.
the opposite of flow, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, like I'm changing everything versus that kind of relaxed, like weight on those feet. And I mean, I think I may be worse at this than other people, but so many times when I try extra hard, my feet pop and it really bothers me. And if you're a climbing partner of mine, you'll hear me say this, like, it bothers me so much because my feet will pick off of things that are big. And it's like there's no excuse there. Like it's all me changing
Yeah.
everything about how the mechanics go because I'm trying extra hard. And it's like, wait, you're trying extra hard and your foot is coming off of the biggest feet? Like that's mind games right there. That's bad.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying you need to prime like and so here's another pro tip based on this climb that I would give specifically to Josh. Once you do this climb, you should do this climb a lot of times. Like, is it great? It's a little vulgar, but make your projects your bitch. Like, once you do them, like, and this is a personal pro tip. This is a step towards mastery versus just like getting hard climbs done, because this entails doing repeating climbs that you already are able to do. But I don't think this is something that a lot of people do. But for me, it's helped a ton. Like, if I struggle on a climb and it's a significant experience of mine, because you'll go through a bunch of, like, this is a V8, but you'll go through a bunch of nines that are definitely harder, a bunch of tens that you'll just cruise, right? But those aren't even the significant learning experiences. That's you already tested yourself. You already know that, right? But once you've figured something out and you get it done the one time and you're like, oh yes, do it again, right? Do it tomorrow, do it a week from now. Like, really make sure you know that you're doing it the right way. Therefore you can take those properties to a bunch of other climbs that have the exact same, types of factors at play. Make that climb your bitch. Just do it over and over again, and be able to not think about it. I really feel for that point. I had the same struggle where once I started to really overthink things, big feet would slip all the time, especially in competition. And I remember specifically going into the gym and starting to work in my breath work, and I would do easy climbs with big feet that were far away from me, and I would just try to make really easy movements hard. I would just like try really hard on like really extended feet, and I was like, dog, this is what you're supposed to do. So priming your brain through breath work is really key there, and that's why when I go for this climb, I just get there. I don't think about my hands whatsoever. I just think about the trajectory and the momentum, and I just breathe. So I remember specifically I had this gas down, and the flyby move to the left is really hard for V8. I remember going to that
It's
second to
probably a
last hole
V8, probably a
for
V8 move. Yeah.
the single move's probably V8
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
And I remember that being pretty hard. And so I remember being able to sequence it and say, okay, you're going to get there. You're going to be a little bit engaged on the arms. So right when that foot goes on, exhale, release the arms, then pull the arms again. So I needed to release the arms before I can get back into the arms. If your arms are already tensed up, your feet are going to pop. So usually when I stick
Oh,
hard
that's
movements,
good.
I
That's
take
a
an
good tip.
exhale and release the arms so that I can provide more tension to them again. So what it looks like is I stick it and then I just go right away. I don't even think about it. I just put that left foot on. It's I just stick the move, right foot goes on, release, left foot goes on, inhale straight, and I go straight into the movement. And I have to practice that over and over and over again. And that's why I would redo this type of climb over and over again.
All right. I gotta say like three things because that was all freaking gold. I love that thing you're talking about standing on feet and even on like easy climbs and really making it quote unquote hard. And it just what it makes me think of is I don't think that enough people really try to keep their feet on. Like really like
Mm-hmm.
this like the practice of trying just as hard with your hands or doing a pull up as keeping your feet on or when the foot's really far away actually makes me think of some of the stuff talked about with Carlo and just that kind of almost pushing versus pulling this like putting your head in your feet and de-emphasizing the pulling aspect of climbing. And we caught flack on some of those videos because people don't understand what Carlo is saying, just a bunch of mids. And it's not that you don't pull in climbing and like you need to be strong. It's like this thing you ever hear people say, like they go climbing for the first time and they're like, it's not really about your upper body, right? Like you have to use your feet. And you're like, I know what you're saying. You probably heard someone say that, but if you look at all climbers, they actually have stick legs, and it really
Right.
is upper body still. But then that next level is again, it's like, yeah. But then when you get to V16 or whatever, like Carlo, like actually you need to rethink pulling. Like pulling is a check. Like of course Carlo can pull unbelievably hard. Trust me,
Yeah.
99 out of 100 people, 999,000 out of 100, a million people can't pull as hard as Carlo. But because pulling hard is a check mark for really hard climbing. And now it's like, what else do you got? So it's just, I love what you're saying about thinking about feet, really putting your effort there. And then you talked about this, the second move on eh, eh, so, and we'll post a picture of this climb, but the setup move for this is where you cut and you catch, and it's one of those catches where you have to jump into the finishing position. Like you don't. Actually, my buddy
Yeah,
was
yeah.
struggling on this move, and he's like a V11 climber, and this is a V8, and he couldn't do that move at first because what he was doing is he was reaching up for it, and then he would
Hmm.
swing out and he would rip off. And it was like, no, dude, you need to like jump and catch it in like a plumb or dead hang position. But because of that, you're catching it with arms bent. You're sucked up into it.
Yeah,
You're almost like doing a pull up on it. And then what you said is when you do a hard move like that, and then you need to go and put a bunch of weight on your feet, you need to unlock those arms. You need to like relax and get out of that tensed up. Otherwise, your foot's going to pop. And I can't tell you how perfect, like, this is the best example. Like, you just nailed it right on the head, like what that sequence is like and what's required. Because at the end, at that last move, after you do that jump move, it's all about weight on your foot. Like it just is. You're no way are you going to campus that move. You jump for that move off of that foot. So
right.
wonderful. That was just really cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
But also don't relax the hands. A good pro tip for a lot of people, like you don't ever have to, especially in bouldering, like you don't have to relax. This is a I gave a pro tip a long time ago about lead climbing where my coach explained to me hold like a Wonder Bread sandwich like downward, and that's how you want to be lead climbing. When you're bouldering, you don't really want to do that. You just want to release the body. It's like holding a large refrigerator. You know, your hands obviously have to be very tense, but your body doesn't have to be, and it's exhausting to have that, right? But if you wanted to throw the refrigerator, like you again, you need to unload the arms and then provide a little bit more elasticity to it. And so be careful on the moonboard too. Like if you relax the hands too much, it's going to be really difficult to then regain the tension. And so what I do often is I'm very overgripped on my hands for most movements, and then I unload the shoulders. I check a lot in videos. I'll watch over and over again, like what does my trap line look like all the way down to my elbows. And that stuff is always like you're always a little bit more loaded than you need to be, and then that could always be a factor in terms of are you accessing from your feet, because everything in climbing is 100. It's out of 100. So like if you're going to spend 60 on your arms, like you're only giving 40 to your legs, right? And I like what the point you're making about kind of footwork and leg work. The way that I see it is we're really sophisticated on our upper bodies. We're very sophisticated, even if you're not a rock climber. You're very sophisticated already with your upper bodies. You're very aware of like where your arms are and like what they're supposed to be doing. Very few people are sophisticated with their legs. Even if they do leg related things, your toes aren't sophisticated, that's for sure. Like unless what are you doing that makes your toes sophisticated, right? Like what are you doing that makes your knees and like your work that way sophisticated? So making your legs sophisticated, I think, is really key there. And so that's kind of what I was saying with the easier climbing. Like you're just doing the same things you're doing with your upper body. It's just really difficult for your legs. And don't assume that your legs are sophisticated. Like don't assume that, because we know our legs are strong, but they're not sophisticated, right? And so they don't really know what they're doing, but they're able to perform. They're way stronger. Your legs are way stronger than your arms, right? Most people. And so even for me, I have
Speak
my
for
arms are like
yourself.
the same size as my legs. Even for me though, my legs are like the same size as my arms, but I know my legs are way stronger. I can rely on them for strength, but they're not that sophisticated. Well, mine maybe are a little bit more sophisticated, but I needed to practice that for a
Yeah.
long period of time.
All
Yes.
right. Well, if you're the kind of person that just digs that deep dive into one moonboard problem or any problem you have, please join us on our classrooms. Patrons and porters can join us. I think we got one coming up in a couple of weeks, February 21st, 7 p.m. Hopefully that's right. Yeah, please join us. That is, if you like that, you'll like the classroom, because that is exactly what it's like. And if the classroom isn't for you, but you still want to support the podcast, please leave us a review, a 5-star nice review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if it's not a 5-star review, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't leave a review. Don't don't say anything at all. But yeah. Anyways, the moonboard stuff is so good. I actually wanted to. I had to share just because people love this moonboard great stuff. So we're talking about that. That's a V8, and yeah, in that session, I flashed multiple new V9s, benchmark V9s. And actually, that's one of the things about benchmarks that's really cool is that you have to do them all. So like, I don't care what the grade is. Like that's not really the point. And just to give people a framework of this, the session I was in there having was with a solid V11 climber and another V13, V14 climber who had just come from a session where he almost did the swarm fell off on like the last hard move where he's fallen repeatedly.
What?
And yeah, poor guy, dude. You should see this video of him. He's like doing it, and you're like, "Oh, you
Oh,
did.
it
Oh, you
sucks.
didn't do it. Oh no, dude."
No.
And so yeah, we kind of were having some of a volume session. We did a bunch of V9s, and I put them on this V8, and then none of us did it. And here you have people who like, I mean, literally just about to climb a hard V13 slash 14, very experienced. And then I put them on this one V6. I think it's the least repeated V6. It's got this, dude. This is on the 2016 set. You like lock off this pinch, you go to that pinch that's on Black Beauty, and then you flip this other thing into an undercling and lunge for the top. It's fucking nails. I think it was the only V6 I didn't flash, and they they didn't do it. I mean, if they would have tried it more, they probably would have done it. But it just goes to show you, every climb's different. The moonboard's freaking wild, and yeah, just thought that would be a fun for people to understand what that session looks like with, I would argue, pretty darn experienced climbers. And yeah, this VA has given me a lot of trouble, and that's okay. And now I can do it because Tim
Is
told
it
me
this
how.
thing?
Yeah,
Problem
yeah,
20? Dude,
yeah.
I
Problem
flashed that thing
20
too.
V6.
I remember that one so hard.
So hard. I did second try,
So
Tim.
hard.
I can't out Tim
Hey,
on the moonboard, but I did second try. I was very proud. But dude,
that's pretty
and
good.
I repeated it that time, and I tried so hard, Tim. I mean, that last move or that flip at like, I mean, is that not V10? Like that has to be
Yeah,
V10.
dude.
But
That's another good pro
whatever.
tip. Like, I don't ever not try hard on the moonboard. I don't care what grade it is, and this is a good pro tip for all of you guys. Don't look at the grade and make that judge how you try climbs. I see that all the time, especially in almost every single person I've ever worked with. I don't care what level you are. You misjudge your effort level on based on what the grade tells you, but you should just read movement. You should just read like, okay, well that hand is going to be like pretty brutal. Like on this climb, I could just see it. Like you just have this and you have no support. You have no support and leverage. You're just putting all this weight on this pinch. And I didn't flip that hand, but that's cool beta. But I remember just being like, wow, this is going to be such a hard pull to the finish. And again, instead of focusing on all these things that might cause me failure, I just focus on one or two things that definitely are going to cause me success, get there, breathe, and I just focus on them. And that's, again, that's why I can probably do it like immediately. Could I do it in a way that is better beta? For sure. Like that's not what I'm saying. Could I do it in a way that maybe makes it easier, closer to the grade? Yeah, definitely. But I'm trying to do these things and do them with certainty. Yeah, really, really
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a good message out there too, because literally in a crew with, I mean, I may not be in V13 shape right now, but a guy who literally is about to do the swarm and is a very experienced climber, and he couldn't do that V8, didn't flash that quote unquote V6. And it's just, I don't know. I just think it's fun to show people what's really going on in these sessions. And that's not to say that he couldn't have then gone and maybe flashes one of the V11s or V12 benchmarks. It's just that, don't I mean, don't put all your self-worth on doing a climb or not doing a climb, because each climb is different. And
Yeah.
especially when you're on the moonboard, yeah, let that V6, that problem 20, by the way, really good. I do flip that thing to an undercling, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a cool problem. It's a little unstable because you don't have that left foot, but just,
Mm-hmm.
it's sick, man. Like, and that
Yeah.
undercling is pretty positive, which gives you the ability to pull in and then get weight on that right foot to then jump to the
Right.
top. It's like, it actually, I don't want to say anything bad about moonboard setting because people will flip out again, but that one was set pretty darn well. That was pretty cool.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, no, I love that point that you're making too about like strong climbers kind of showing up on, it happens on boards specifically because boards are boards, they're good at teaching you what they're good at teaching you, but you can climb really really hard rock climbing without ever knowing exactly how to climb the boards the best way. But if you get really good at the boards, it's going to teach you and give you a bunch of tools that then you can put on a bunch of other hard climbs that might make those climbs feel a little bit easier to you. And that's how we should, personally, that's how I think we should view them. I have a pro tip, somewhat, in the line of what we're talking about. And I kind of thought about it because I was going to Joshua Tree. And like I said, I'm not really going for a trip. This pro tip isn't going to apply to me necessarily, but I'm definitely going to do something like this. And I do this in almost every new climbing area that I go to. It's based off of a leak that I see in a lot of young people. A lot of young people are very, very objective focused when they go to climbing areas. And I don't think that's bad in terms of getting a successful trip, in terms of like trying to reach for the stars. But what is the point of a trip? What's the point of going to a new area? What are all the benefits that you can get from a new climbing area other than just having fun? Well, it's all this stuff that we're talking about. You can learn so much, but not if you get super sites focused on, one or two or three projects for the whole 2 weeks that you're going. Even for 1 week that you're going, you're just going to try one climb. And the pro tip here is pick some send climbs, like not just climbs that you're going to project, but, and that's fine. I think it's great actually to have these kind of really out there, like, oh, it'd be so awesome if I did them. And even if I have 200 tries over the week on this climb, like, I'll be psyched. You're definitely going to walk away feeling a little bit empty-handed, and you're going to learn some things, but you're also going to miss out on a lot of things that you could have learned. And who knows the next time you're going to go to that climbing area. So my biggest pro tip there is pick a couple, like 3 to 10 climbs that you're probably going to send, and you'd be so shocked at how good the warm-ups are going to be. You'd be so happy with, like, just all the experience you're going to have in the future. I know Josh knows this very, very well, but pick send climbs. Pick climbs that you're going to send or likely going to send. Make it a day. Make it, like, chances are you're going to climbing trips with people who all climb different grades, but certainly you can all have a good time on these, maybe quote unquote warm up climbs, or just climbs that you can all send. Even if someone sends it first try, like, it's going to be fun if it takes somebody else like 5 tries. Pick send climbs.
I'll go one step further, and I actually have a list, like a tick list for basically every area in the world. And it's because I'll see climbs on videos and I'll write it down. And so I have a lot of V3, V5s, V8s, which for me, I can, kind of confidently say, like, I need to go do these. And yeah, I just think that it's underrated that, unless you're a pro climber, unless you're Will Bosey, who needs to come out and do Return of the Sleepwalker because, I mean, he's literally paid for that. Like that's why, he has to spend money on this trip to do this thing to make the sponsors happy and stuff. But that's maybe that is you too. That's not me. Like I just,
Yeah, not really. I just
yeah,
share what I like. Yeah.
yeah, I just I like how you framed it too. It's like, what's the point of this trip? Like, what are we really doing? And this is where
Right.
it can be dangerous when people think like, oh, I need to do the soft V10 that I heard I could probably do. And you're like, okay, I mean, go for it. That's great. But what if you don't do it? Like, are you still going to have fun? Are you still going
Yeah.
to learn something? And
Yeah. But dude, going back to what you said before, get the ball rolling. Like, you would be
mm,
shocked at how much better your project session might go if you just sent something before. Now you're happier, like your mood is, how you show up to, a climb or your project is huge, is a huge factor in how your session's going to go. So having just a couple of sends for that day, and you're like, like,
dude,
okay, cool. That was fun. That was fun warm
when
up.
you send that warm up proj, like I love having that thing that's maybe like 2 or 3 grades below the climb I really want to do. And then when you do it, you're like, oh, I'm sending today. I'm in a sending day. And that, dude, just underrated. It's nice, even in your kind of home areas. I think it's good to
Hmm.
have, I call it a warm up proj. It doesn't mean that you're warming up on it exactly. It just means like, it's not something that is way over your limit. That's going to take 10 sessions. It's like, I might be able to do this in one session. I might be able to do it in three, but you go there and you have a little less, um, feeling, emotion around doing it. It's kind of like, oh, it's there. Like, it's maybe not the
Right.
most epic line. It's just cool. Like, it's something I'd like to do. And boy, when you send it that day, that's a good day, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. A lot of pro climbers have this warm up project idea, and it's super funny because a lot of times warm up projects are just harder than the project, and you just never end up doing your warm up project, or you do your warm up project, you're like, oh, like that's so much better than the project. But yeah, warm up projects are super key, just to be able to spend time on them without that emotional connection.
I also encourage people to have those warm up projects be things that they know they should climb. Maybe it's a type of movement or something that they don't super excel at, but maybe they're not as inspired by it. And like a couple of warm up projects for me that I had in Bishop were Center Direct and
It's a good one for a lot of
what's
people.
that in the mystery, like the traverse that goes to the right
Hmm.
of it. Those climbs are incredible. And actually, the mystery, even though it's a traverse and it's a drop off, it just climbs so well, and it's really really
Dude, it's
cool.
one of the best.
It
Yeah.
it actually is a really incredible climb, but dude, just aesthetically, like it doesn't do it for me when it comes to inspiring. And so, these were climbs like I knew I should do, and They weren't easy for me, but they weren't, my ultimate limit goals. And just having the ability to kind of do a secondary warm up, run over, try some moves, and then eventually they just go down. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Like I didn't want to make my whole trip or my whole day around these climbs, but you learn something, and you get stronger and exposed to maybe movement or climbs that you should do, maybe to build that pyramid. And I just think that's a good way to like structure it. Like, it's not like the thing that you wake up at night like wishing you had done. It's just that, you know that's where they're appropriate. I think how you fit into that session.
Yeah, dude, like having those what you were saying, like seeing new movement, and like think about what Josh just kind of what what Josh and I just went through. Like I Josh has been climbing far longer than I have, but he has a way of looking at climbing, and somebody else has a different way of looking at climbing. And so I can look at this one V8 and be like, well, on this one specifically, I know you can do it a slightly different way, and that might be helpful. And if you do that for yourself on all these different climbs, different warm up projects, just think about how you're going to look at your project the next time. Be like, wait, I guess this spike is, you could do this on it. You can turn this way. Like, oh, interesting. Like nobody, I don't think even at the highest level, people are still not absolutely certain on the best way to do things. They discover it, right? But your way of discovering things, if that gets quicker and a little bit more accurate, then you're always going to be, you're going to find quicker success. So yeah, do
All
it.
right, Tim, speaking of quicker success, I wanted to talk about the enhanced Olympics and doing
Yeah.
drugs. I don't know. This just caught my eye, man. You heard about this, or I know I sent it to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
The,
Me too. Yeah.
yeah, there is a new Olympic game. I don't know what I was it called, the Enhanced Olympics. I
I think it's
can't
called
remember.
the Enhanced Games.
Enhanced Games. Okay, so this is a competitor to the Olympics where they do not drug test. So basically, especially given the name, performance enhancing drugs are, I would argue, maybe even encouraged rather than illegal in the pursuit of excellence. And I just found this super interesting. It's this whole conversation around, our sport, and is it okay to do drugs? And well, clearly if it's against the rules, it's not okay. Like, just fundamentally, regardless of your moral stance on uh things like steroids or whatever, if in the rules it says you cannot do them, then it is cheating to do them. But then you come along with something like this where it's it's wide open. And I was actually chatting with Jamie Emerson about this, and I quoted him because he has this famous quote that is, there's no there's no cheating in climbing, there's only lying. And I find
Hmm.
this really interesting where, well, I guess it could be cheating if you're in a competition and then you do drugs and they say you can't do it. But it just made me think of what our future holds, because
Hmm.
I know that people have been messing around with different performance enhancing drugs in climbing, but it's not very prevalent. And I just wonder if it's going to become more prevalent. And
Hmm.
what about when we have these sports where it's encouraged? You're a competitor now, or not as much as you used to be, but you have a big background competition. I have one as well. I'm just kind of curious what your take is on it, if you've seen any kind of performance enhancing drugs, or what the
Hmm.
murmur is behind the scenes.
Um, yeah, I mean, this is a fun discussion. I was seeing it on my Instagram a couple of times, this enhanced games thing. This billionaire wants to start this thing, and it got a lot of likes, got a lot of support. And I had mixed feelings right away, of course. Like literally half of me was like, that's gonna be entertaining. The other half of me was like, I would never do that. And I would never be interested in personally pursuing anything that, and it just got thinking like, so what is it about sports that matters to me? What is it about competition that matters to me? And it really is, at the end of the day, to speak on not enhanced games, the reason why sports are so cool is because it's hard. It's hard to go and compete. It's hard to go and win. It's difficult. And when you're a kid, you don't realize that. You just want to. You just want to go and win. But then you go and lose for your whole career, and you're like, okay, this is really difficult. And yes, you can always stop, but then you can go back to the gym and work, and you can decide, what do I need to do, and what should I work on to get me to the top. And I think human nature is to either enjoy that or just to like not do it, right? Or not to be interested. But if you have this out that you can, hey, you can take this thing and it's gonna make these types of things easier and you're gonna be so much stronger. I can see how that can be enticing. So there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of like kids that I'm worried about that, I'm almost lucky that I didn't have that easy out, but I kind of did. I kind of was aware that steroids existed. I was aware that you could do all sorts of drugs that might make something easier. I just wasn't interested. And so I'm curious if kids are interested, right? And that's where it's going to be tough for coaches. I think it's going to be tough for a lot of, coaches who work with just like, yeah, regular kids who maybe come into team practice one day and they're like, yeah, well, I, got across this. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, let's have a real discussion about this first. So, I have a lot of thoughts about the future of it, but I will say I'm very interested. It's obviously interesting to see what the human body can do, even through that. I'm not saying that I support it necessarily, but I'm definitely interested, and I will for sure watch it if it happens. And I'd be interested to see if it happens, in climbing or, yeah, you have a lot of good discussion topics
Well,
there. But
I'm just
yeah.
wondering if anyone has approached you in your normie gym. They're like, "Hey, hey, Tim, looking kind of skinny there. Do you need some help?"
Dude, by the way, sorry, side note, it was so funny. Michaela and I were lifting by the benches. We were doing some, rows, dumbbell press and stuff. And I was wearing shorts. I usually wear sweatpants to the gym. I didn't, not on for any reason, but
Because
that
it's
day I was
because you
wearing
skip leg
shorts.
day. It's because you skip leg
Yeah.
day.
Well, then I realized that I skipped leg day because I looked in the mirror. I was like, oh, dude, these guys are huge. Like their legs are huge. My legs are so skinny. Anyway, no, I have not gotten approached. I don't really I'm not in that world. I'm not even aware of what kinds of steroids people take. I think you probably know that stuff a lot better than I
Yeah,
do.
look at me,
Um,
Tim. I just know it. Look at me and my massive massive physique. Yeah, I find this stuff really interesting. And for some background for people, I guess I in college I did a lot of weightlifting, and I was in a gym because I actually wasn't really climbing at the time, and I feel like every 18-year-old guy wants to be bigger and stronger. I also came from a football town where it was very,
mm,
I don't know, very be big, be strong. And I really enjoy weightlifting actually because I like trying really hard. And weightlifting is
mm,
about trying really hard. And I took a lot of joy in that. But the gym I was in, because it was a powerlifting gym, they were all doing steroids. So I was around it. And it's just so it's something that I've been around and seen. And I have some, yeah, I think I have maybe a different view on it than others. And I mean, the main thing that really does bother me about is what you're saying when it comes to kids. And I guess actually Jamie brought this up. He said, what about when people's favorite athlete, a kid's favorite athlete,
mm,
is literally sponsored by a steroid company? So, it's
mm,
like companies sponsor athletes because they want to associate themselves with that person. If you're in love with Lance Armstrong and then you find out he's doing steroids, but instead of it being, oh no, and this is bad, it's like, this is good. Then all of a sudden you create this weird thing where like your idol is doing something that is literally publicized as being part of who he is and what he does. And that worries me as a parent, because I think when I think about steroids and my personal stance on it, if you told me that I was a, Olympic gymnast or climber or whatever, and I was, in semifinals, I'm like seventh place or something. And I know that the top people are doing steroids. And this is just a blanket statement. And that was part of what it took to go from being pretty darn good, like a competitor, but to really vie for the top spot. I probably would say yes. I would probably do it. And
mm,
it's very different in my mind, to say that than take steroids so you could even like qualify for the Olympics, right? Like
mm,
it to me, it's one of the things that I think about is like in my high school, I know people were doing it, and it's like, okay, so you're going to take steroids so you can get to play college football, but like it's very different to, yeah, or sorry, we should do a climbing stance. It's a very bad call to take steroids to go from V8 to V9. Like, do not
mm,
do that.
mm,
And I'm not even saying you should do steroids ever, but just recognize that the sacrifices that people make for excellence and health should not be done when you're just a dabbler. Like, very,
yeah.
because it does hurt you. And I mean, that's just like, that's a little bit of a side tangent, but I just think if anyone out there is ever considering doing performance enhancing drugs, do not do it when you're just decent at something. it is the worst risk reward benefit to harm ratio to go from not very
Mhm.
good to still just kind of not so good. And it's very different when you are maybe going to be, Mark McGuire, right? Like, one of the best or whatever, go and make millions and millions of dollars. Like, I think that
Mhm.
people have to acknowledge that this stuff is detrimental to your health. But the
Mhm.
thing I want to point out that I think doesn't get talked about enough is that sports in general are detrimental to your health.
Mhm.
And it sounds kind of strange to say when we all know that like we're in shape and we're fit and everything. And, like I watch what I eat and I get exercise and everything. And I'm a lot better than someone who sits on the couch. But when you take things to the ultimate, I mean, look, Tim, like you did wild highballs. Like there's no,
Mhm.
in no world was that like, oh, like this is good for me. It's like there's a risk there.
Mhm.
And the benefit is totally subjective. You're like, no, like this is something that
Mhm.
I have to do. And so this is where it's not fair to say like, oh, we shouldn't do it because it's unhealthy. It's like sport when taken to the extreme is always unhealthy. And that's not why we do things. No
Mhm.
one is out there climbing V16 because they want to live longer. Like that's not what
Yeah.
people are out there doing. So I just think that's an important discussion to have there too.
It's super interesting. Yeah, when we discussed about this on the phone, I kind of was like, if you offered almost any teenage kid, like, all right, here's a syringe, you inject it or whatever, you take this pill, and it's going to cost you half your life, but you're going to be one of the best ever. I would argue that a lot of people would take that. I would argue that if it was really they were very confident about that. Sadly, in my opinion, unfortunately, people would take that, right? And so, why is that? I think is like a really interesting thing. You kind of you kind of were kind of talking about it a little bit. But for me, like I would never take that because I don't care about winning. I care about doing my best, right? And I don't think a lot of people are primed that way. And I wasn't primed that way in the beginning. I just lost a lot, so I was like, okay, I'm not going to win a lot in the beginning. So like, why am I still doing this? Like, oh well, I really want to do better, right? And it was a serious conversation I had with coaches early on. Like, do you still want to keep going? Like, do you still want to do this because you care a lot and it hurts you a lot? I don't want to see you hurt all the time. And it's like, no, I'm hurt. It's fine. I can get hurt. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this until I feel happy with my career. And I guess like for me, I would never be happy with my career, even if I was winning, because I would never know if I was doing my best or I was giving 100%. I have something that's cheating me to that. And I want to be careful with that word cheating because I'm not totally aware of what performance enhancing drugs are going to look like in the future. Like I don't necessarily know. And so if there is something that seems a little bit more clean, I still wouldn't take it, but I don't know, I'd be curious to see like those people who are taking it, what are they actually enhancing? And you made a really interesting point too in our discussion. What happens with FAs? If FAs are done with people who are enhanced, like do those go? And I'm like, for me, my immediate answer was, yeah, I don't care. Like for me, I would love to compete against people who are enhanced because I still want to see if a clean mind or a clean body is going to be clean-ish. My diet's not always. I'm just kidding.
Are you
But
drunk right
I
now,
want
Tim?
like I want to see if that's actually gonna be better. And I would always argue, and I made an interesting point. What I would want to see is the top three, the podium from the Olympic Games and the podium from the enhanced games go against each other in the future, like way late in the future, and then see that. And I
Oh,
would always, just for my pride, I would put money on the non-enhanced athletes, right?
well, that was the big joke. That was like there was some comment in that I thought was so funny was how it's going to be a big shocker when we find out that the best times in the enhanced games are the same as in the Olympics because everyone's doping in the freaking Olympics anyways. It's just
Oh,
yeah, it's not as it's not as obvious, but they're doing it. So something that I thought was really interesting in the discussion we had before too was how we talked about climbers who are compelled to do a line. It's it's just for them. Typically this is going to be outdoors, but they just are struck by a piece of rock. And my kind of devil's advocate, or not devil's, just like you have a situation where a person is trying to do something and they are training and they can't do it, and then they train more and maybe they can do it with more training, but that they do some kind of performance enhancing drugs in order to do the climb. And the reason why I thought it was interesting to bring up, because I know certain athletes are compelled or are pulled to a climb to do it, and they're not thinking like, I want to do it first because I want my name on. I want to do it just because Jerry Moffat did or whatever. They're just like, I just got to do this, and for them, it's they may do something that is maybe thought of as cheating by others to do it, but they're playing their own game. Like
Mhm.
it's not cheating because they're playing their own game. Now the caveat there is if they make a bunch of sponsorship money and they lie and they said that they did it clean, that to me is a different thing. But like, can we condemn people who do anything that they can in their mind that is okay to do something that they desire? It would be very different if they say chip the climb because that affects
Mm,
others,
mm,
right? But doing something like, I don't know, taking steroids or whatever, so that they can do that climb for themselves, like, how can I can't really judge that. I like that.
mhm.
They're not playing the game with me. They're playing their own game.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, and I get that. That's why for me, like if an FA goes and I'm aware that somebody was enhanced to do it or took something that, was helpful for them, like I don't care that much. That's their game that they're playing. And and I'm not someone who is line focused. I've been obsessed with certain types of climbs, but that's actually more for the experience. I usually just try something else because I'm like, why was that so hard for me? It's not usually doesn't have anything to do with the line, but I know a lot of climbers who, and a lot of rock climbers specifically are just very line focused. And I think that's great. I think that's very cool. I just don't work that way. But I can see that if you were that focused on that and you were like, well, what am I going to sacrifice to get this thing done? And yeah, why wouldn't you if you knew that something would help you and you just took something and even if it cost you a couple years of your life even like I definitely know a lot of people who would do that. So I'm not saying I know people who do that, but I know people who would. And so yeah, it's definitely an interesting discussion, and it's interesting to see what the future might hold. Obviously, this is enhanced games, and it's probably not going to include something like rock climbing for a while, if even. But it's going to bring up a lot of, I think, transparency to specific types of, you know, direction for sport in general. And climbing's still a sport, and so people are aware of
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I think that the reason why it's a topic worth discussing is because it's not going to go backwards. Like, we're not going to have less drugs available. We're not going to have
Yeah.
less incentives to do things like that. And I do know that there have been people who have taken steroids in climbing. There are people who
Hmm.
have taken illicit drugs to improve performances for short periods of time. I mean, there's even been people popped in competitions for that stuff.
Hmm.
And I just it's like it's just fascinating to me, man. And we stayed away from even talk, like, we use the word steroids as this kind of like general term, but I know enough to know about these different kinds of
Hmm.
steroids and performance enhancing drugs that if you're the kind of person who thinks, oh, like, steroids won't be good for our sport, like if you take testosterone, you're going to just bulk up and it won't work for climbing because climbing doesn't work like that. I just got to tell you, you're wrong, because there is a million ways to use body enhancing drugs to improve performance in climbing. I don't think it's I'm not going to go into the ideas I have for how people could use different drugs. And it's funny because I make it sound like I'm doing this stuff, but I just find it fascinating. I guess for me, like, I'm always interested in the cutting edge of stuff, like Austin unlocking. It's like indoor climbing was a tool that got applied to outdoor climbing. It gave us new moves, new availability for volume, in the sense of just more climbing could be done on holds that were skin friendly, and it allowed us to unlock things outdoors. And so, all these things you have to decide for yourself, like, are knee pads cheating? Were sticky rubber shoes cheating? Was
Hmm.
chalk cheating? And I, it's, I don't know. I don't have a really good framework of what is okay and what's not, other than don't lie. Just don't lie. Don't break the rules. If you're going to play in a game where there's rules, you can't break them. That's wrong. And I had
Don't hurt
another one,
others'
but
experience.
don't hurt others' experience. But
Hmm.
it's just, I don't know, man. I guess I'm just fascinated by this stuff, and I think it's interesting, and it's not going to become less of an issue. My argument would be that it's going to become more of an issue. And fundamentally, I hope no one, I hope my kids don't get mixed up in it. I hope You don't get mixed up
Right.
in it, but I
Yeah.
can't say that it won't happen for other people. And I'm not sure if they're fundamentally bad or evil. It's something we're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah. Hey man, the only thing I want to take is something that will help my skin last longer and my tendons won't break. And I
Tim,
don't think
there
there's that
literally is
many.
stuff like that. There is stuff like that though. That's that conversation. That's like
But without
the
something intrusive, right? Like, because I guess that's the question I would always want to have is what does it cost me? Like, what does it actually cost me? But
but like that's
that's why people take antihydral
but so
in colleges and stuff. Hmm.
antihydral has stuff in it. First of all, antihydral is just bad for you. Like putting that
I've
stuff on
never
your skin
taken
and
it. Yeah,
absorbing it.
I've never used
Like
it. Hmm.
I use it, but it's fundamentally bad for you. Like you're absorbing
Hmm.
these gnarly chemicals. And this one I'm blanking on there's something in it
Yeah,
that
yeah.
hardens skin. That like
Hmm.
that classic it literally hardens skin. So is that cheating? But then it's like, is it cheating if you're the kind of person that has naturally dry and hard skin? It's like,
Right.
no,
Yeah, it's so
this
tough.
is where like I don't have a good answer, man. I really don't. And
I
yeah,
just want regenerative skin. Like I want skin that heals back really quickly. Like that's what I don't want skin that lasts forever and is super hard because there's like the reason why I didn't take antihydral for a long time was because I was scared that my skin would never go soft again. And like slopers for me were something, like you guys know from another podcast is my favorite holds from like a long time. And I know that if your skin's a little bit too hard, you're just gonna dry fire on everything. So I didn't want that to happen, but can I have skin that lasts just as long as this like antihydral skin? And like that's what I would want. And then the only times my sessions would end, because when I was younger, I wouldn't take rest days and I would just climb as long as I could. Right. And so like the only things that were limiting for me were I felt like my tendons were gonna blow or my skin just hurt too bad. It's like those are the things that I care about. But
pretty
then I'm
sure
also
that
relatively purist.
pretty sure that even testosterone would make your skin heal faster because it
Mm,
helps with
so interesting.
you know it's anabolism. It's makes tissues grow faster. It makes like what steroids do in general, like the classic like testosterone, is it doesn't build muscle. It helps you recover faster.
Mm,
And it
hmm.
does have, I mean, it does help you. Let's just give me that for anyone who's listening, knows all the details. It helps you recover faster so you can climb more often,
Right.
or so you could lift weights more often. And so my
Right.
hunch is it would help your skin repair faster. I know like
Mm,
HGA or there's other things that do help those things recover. And then things like that BPC 157, when injected into tendons, seems to
hmm.
stimulate tendon repair. So it's like, is that wrong? Like to inject that? Like I do, I just like this stuff. To me, I mean, what we do a lot here is this kind of, it's not black and white. Like I would just, I would discourage 99.999% of people from ever doing anything that could harm their health because at the end of the day, it's just not worth it. And if you're not here,
Yeah.
then, but then some people do crazy things like they climb too big to flail and they risk life and limb for
Why do you
climbing.
do that?
So,
Who the hell would do that? Stupid.
oh
I guess
God.
yeah. My final point on that is I don't care at all what people do. I just care if they share the transparency of how they did it. And so for me too, like in the future, I guess I wouldn't care necessarily. I definitely was purist for my first 10 years of my career, and I'm not saying I have any interest in doing that stuff. But if I did in the future, the only thing I would care about is that I'm saying I'm doing that stuff, which is inherently why I wouldn't do it. Because then if I have to say I'm doing this to get my projects done,
Mm.
like that's not what I want to do. I want to get my projects done knowing that I did everything that I could do to make sure it happened. And if I can't and I need to take something and that's all that matters to me, I don't care. That's fine. If that's what matters to me then. But I know that's not what matters to me now. And so all I care about is people are honest with each other and honest with themselves.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter. So
Well,
that's
if
my
you ever
thoughts.
see me send any sport climb, know that I do it with a knee pad. I definitely knee pad the shit out of sport
Paid.
climbs. Really need it, and I do think it's interesting that that's been a trend that like people let you know, like this was with a knee pad. I think on 8A, it's now like part of the selection, and yeah, I just it's kind of interesting, man. All right, I don't know if that got too serious or intense, but I just think it's fascinating. I don't know.
Always fun discussions. Always
Tim
fun discussions.
Tim promise us that if you ever start doping that you'll tell us on air. Can you make that
I
promise?
promise. I promise if I ever start doping, I will tell you guys on air.
Okay. Does that
100%.
include antihydral then? Is that doping?
Yes. 100%.
All right. All right, you guys, if you want to dope it up, just let us know. And I'll let you know if I ever go on what's it called, hormone replacement therapy, which is like people,
Yeah.
like old people, which you know what they're doing though. Just so you know,
Mm-mm.
that hormone replacement TRT, they're just doing steroids, man. I don't care what they call it.
Mm.
I don't care, and they talk about like measuring physiological levels. But let me tell you, they're just shooting testosterone. They're doing steroids. There's no way
Yeah.
around it. It's like different levels of it. But just know if you ever hear about people on TRT, they're just shooting testosterone, man. That's like what they're doing. And maybe it's good for their longevity. I don't know. The medical literature is like it may be really beneficial
Mm.
for life and everything. So then I don't know. Whole other can of worms. I just
Yeah.
want people to know what that really means. So
Yeah, the societal norms is a real thing. Societal norms can affect what you think your true ethics are, right? But yeah, it's gonna get tough in the next couple of years. But hey,
there's
we'll
some
talk
people
about it,
who, yeah, some people don't even use climbing shoes, man. They think that's cheating. So
right?
there you go. All right, Tim, good stuff. I feel like we solved all the world's problems. And thanks for giving me the beta on the Moonboard project that you flashed. And glad to hear your knee is getting better, but maybe you should try steroids and get there faster. So there you go. That's all we got
All
today.
right. All right, Josh. See you on the next one. See you guys all in the classroom if you guys are excited to talk more micro beta. But I'll be going to Joshua Tree in about 30 minutes. So I'm pretty psyched.
All right, drive safe. Don't fall off those high balls, and make sure you sample all the classics, man.
All right.
Take
See ya.
care. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like even more content, go to patreon.com/testpiece. And while you're at it, share this podcast with someone you know who would love it. And please leave us a review or rating at wherever you get your podcasts. We've also got tons of great content on YouTube and Instagram, so don't forget to like and subscribe there. Okay, see you next week.